Hello everyone, Procrastinating Turtle here. For today's Pokedex deep dive, I wanted to go over Pokemon whose Pokedex entries have hinted at that Pokemon being from another region. But unlike my last video on this topic, these have been confirmed to be from another region in a later Pokedex entry. The first Pokemon on this list has a national Pokedex number of 103, Exeggutor. While it was introduced in Generation 1, we initially find out that Exeggutor is from another region in Generation 3. This Pokemon's Ruby and Sapphire Pokedex entry states, quote, Exeggutor originally came from the tropics. Its head steadily grows larger from exposure to strong sunlight, end quote. As the regions for the first 4 generations of Pokemon were based in Japan, we know that Exeggutor is not from Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, or even Sinnoh, as Japan is not located in the tropics. It isn't until Generation 7, where we are introduced to the Alolan Exeggutor, that we find out where this Pokemon originates. Alolan Exeggutor's Sun Pokedex entry states, quote, Alola is the best environment for this Pokemon. Local people take pride in its appearance, saying this is how Exeggutor ought to look, end quote. Exeggutor, being from Alola, is even backed up by the Alolan Exeggutor's Ultra Sun Pokedex entry, which states, quote, Exeggutor is the pride of the Alolan people. Its image is carved into historical buildings and murals, end quote. While these Pokedex entries don't explicitly say Exeggutor originated in Alola, they have been there for a long time. Additionally, Alola is based on Hawaii, which is considered to be in the tropics. Unless a later Pokedex entry states Exeggutor is definitely from a different region, I feel like it is a pretty safe conclusion that Exeggutor originated in Alola. The next Pokemon on this list is also from Generation 1. It has a national Pokedex number of 105, Marowak. Our first hint that Marowak may be from another region comes from Generation 2. Its Silver Pokedex entry states, quote, It collects bones from an unknown place. A Marowak graveyard exists somewhere in the world, rumors say, end quote. However, just after that we find out just where Marowak collects its bones from, in its Pokemon's Crystal Pokedex entry. Quote, Somewhere in the world is a cemetery just for Marowak. It gets its bones from those graves, end quote. Just like Exeggutor, we don't find out any more about Marowak or the graveyard until Generation 7, with its Alolan regional variant. Alola Marowak's Moon Pokedex entry gives us the answer. Quote, Its custom is to mourn its lost companions. Mounds of dirt by the side of the road mark the graves of the Marowak, end quote. One may argue that this doesn't mean Marowak came from Alola, but why is the Marowak graveyard only in Alola? Why does Marowak only get its bones from these graves? The last Pokemon from Generation 1 on this list has a national Pokedex number of 140, Kabuto. This one is slightly different as it is the only fossil Pokemon. Many of its Pokedex entries speak about it being resurrected or its life in the ancient past. However, in Kabuto's Silver Pokedex entry, we find out that, quote, This Pokemon lived in ancient times. On rare occasions, it has been discovered as a living fossil, end quote. This makes sense as Kabuto seems to be based on horseshoe crabs, which can still be found today. Unfortunately, the entry doesn't give much information about how rare the sightings are or where they may occur. Kabuto's Ultra Sun Pokedex entry gives us just a little bit more information. Quote, This Pokemon thrived 300 million years ago. It's said that living specimens can still be seen in a certain region, a rare sight, end quote. I believe Kabuto's Sword Pokedex entry tells us exactly where this certain region is. Quote, This species is almost entirely extinct. Kabuto molt every 3 days, making their shells harder and harder, end quote. If Kabuto wasn't naturally found in Galar, how would they know it molts every 3 days? Also, Kabuto's Shield Pokedex entry states, quote, While some say this species has gone extinct, Kabuto sightings are apparently fairly common in some places, end quote. To me, this reads sort of like, why would they say this Pokemon has gone extinct, but it's right here? Additionally, Pokemon Shield is the only game where Kabuto can be found roaming the wild and not acquired by trade or reviving the Dome fossil. The only exception to this being that Kabuto was able to be found in the dream world of Generation 5. This next Pokemon is from Generation 2 and has a national Pokedex number of 155, Cyndaquil. Until Legends Arceus, none of this Pokemon's Pokedex entries indicated that it may not be from Johto. To be fair, neither does Cyndaquil's Legends Arceus Pokedex. Contrarily, this Pokedex entry confirms Cyndaquil is in fact from Johto. It states, quote, "Hails from the Johto region, though usually curled in a ball due to its timid disposition, it harbors tremendous firepower." End quote. Our next Pokemon is from Generation 3. It has a national Pokedex number of 263, Zigzagoon. While introduced in Generation 3, there were not any hints in the Pokedex entries that Zigzagoon was not native to Hoenn. This is until Generation 8 with its Shield Pokedex entry. Quote, "Zigzagoon that adopted to regions outside Galar acquired this appearance. If you've lost something, this Pokemon can likely find it." End quote. To give further evidence that Zigzagoon more than likely came from Galar, the Galarian Zigzagoon's Shield Pokédex entry states, quote, "Thought to be the oldest form of Zigzagoon, it moves in zigzags and wreaks havoc upon its surroundings." End quote. However, as it says the Galarian variant is thought to be the oldest form, we may learn that this is not the case in a future Pokédex entry. For now, it seems like it is proven that Zigzagoon originated in Galar. The last Pokemon on this list is from Generation 5 and has a national Pokedex number of 501, Oshawott. Similarly to Cyndaquil, this Pokemon's Pokedex entries don't hit at another region. This Pokemon's Legends Arceus Pokedex entry also confirms it is from its debut region of Unova. Quote, "This Pokemon from the Unova region uses the shell on its belly as a weapon to cut down its foes. Thus, I've conferred upon this shell the name Scalchop." End quote. So far as of writing the script for this video, these are the only Pokemon to have their region confirmed. Perhaps Wooper and Quagsire are not from Johto after all. Although since Quagsire is probably based on the Japanese giant salamander, I don't think that it's likely. With Pokemon Scarlet and Violet coming out this November, there may be more answers in that Pokedex. If so, I will add more to this video, or record a part 2 only covering those found in the Paldean Pokedex. What do you think? Do you believe any of the Pokemon on this list are actually from a region not mentioned, or a region that has not been visited yet? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you are enjoying these Pokedex deep dive videos, please click that like button and subscribe so you will know when the next deep dive is live.